Welcome back to the Flying with the Flop podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and ladies and gentlemen, we have finally made it through this long off season to the first day of training camp around the NFL. Although it is only two teams, and it's two teams that nobody really cares about, that being the Panthers. Actually, I can't even say that. I know Panthers fans. It's one team that nobody cares about. That's the Arizona Cardinals. And then the Carolina Panthers, all their rookies and veterans are reporting today to prepare for the Hall of Fame game on August 6th, which is 2 weeks away, I think. Yeah, it's roughly around 2 weeks away. We are here gathering our thoughts on the podcast before we head into this crazy time of year that we call the NFL, preseason. You're going to have a lot of storylines that I believe will pop up, and we'll cover what I think will pop up throughout training camp, at the Eagles training camp, and preseason as a whole, referring to the entire NFL. But before we jump into all of that goodness right there, if y'all could leave a like and subscribe down below, that would be much appreciated. Your support never goes unnoticed on this channel, and feel free to share it with others. Coming up into the season, we're going to be rolling like we normally do. We're back to Wednesdays once a week. For a podcast episode, and maybe even sometimes, depending on how big the week is, if the Eagles have the week off or I have the week off from college, then maybe we get 2 episodes a week. Who knows? But we're going to have to wait and see before I make any promises. Alright, so now that all those pleasantries and possibilities are out of the way, let's jump into what's ultimately going to be a shorter episode, but a more exciting episode covering topics like what to expect from different people at the Eagles training camp, what are some storylines coming out of the Eagles training camp, what will be some of the storylines that would be festering, whether it's good or bad, festering during the preseason across the NFL. And I also wanted to touch on some of the ESPN layoffs. So let's get right into that, shall we? So, the Eagles training camp starts less than a week away for all the veterans to report to, that being July 28th, so next Tuesday. And at that point, then we'll finally see what a full Sean Mannion offense will start to shape up to be, as people like Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley all take a lot more snaps, meaningful snaps, during training camp. But who are some of the people that I believe will have more spotlight shown on them this season? And I'll go over why as well. So, starting off, I think the first one and the most obvious person that we can talk about that's going to have the biggest spotlight on him is Jalen Hurts. And the reason why to me is obviously because his running mate is now gone. A.J. Brown obviously being traded, and that impacts several other players on this list that we'll talk about here. But for Jalen, first off, he's coming off of a historically bad season for him. I mean, he had low in career numbers, whether it was rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, passing yards. Now, the offense didn't help him at all, but I do think that Jalen Hurts will have a major spotlight on him coming into this training camp. And whether he's able to shake that off or whether he embraces it, it all really depends on how he comes out during the first few weeks of training camp. I'm not even sure he's going to play in the preseason. I do think he should play one drive in the preseason, but that's just me. But ultimately, I do think Jalen Hurts will either thrive or be able to do enough to have people shift the spotlight onto somebody else during the Eagles training camp. Obviously, he has this new system under Sean Mannion. It's more of a West Coast offense, so he's going to be under center a lot more than he has in his career. Normally, he's at a shotgun kind of quarterback to allow him to assess from deeper behind the line of scrimmage, but now he's going to have to do it right at the line, and hopefully that helps some of his pass protecting call-outs as well. But it's certainly going to be a large learning curve for someone like Jalen Hurts with this new offense. Do I believe he can do it? 100%. He did it within a year under Kellen Moore. Was there growing pains? Absolutely. But it ultimately resulted in a Super Bowl win that season. So don't be surprised if we see Jalen Hurts make a major step forward in his play as a quarterback as a whole. Next up on my list is DeVonta Smith. Now, DeVonta, similar to Jalen, his running mate is gone, and now it's time for him to be the full number one. Now, this isn't the first time that DeVonta has been the number one, the absolute number one in his career. His rookie year, he set the rookie receiving yard record, and he was the number one receiver for Jalen Hurts back in 2021. And the connection was really strong even back then. And so to me, I wouldn't be surprised if we see DeVonta Smith have some form of a breakout kind of season, similar to what Saquon Barkley had back during the 2024 season. DeVonta, amazing route runner, amazing hands, will lay out to catch the ball. I do feel like will be a major reason why Sean Mannion's system will be a major success off the bat for this Eagles team. And ultimately, with not having to be the quote-unquote number two, as I would probably say, he used to be the 1B instead of the 1A, because the 1A would kick and scream whenever he didn't get more targets or receptions than DeVonta Smith in a game. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, every game, go back to the Vikings game this past season, in which A.J. Brown did really good, but DeVonta Smith stood out among... He was like a boy, or no, excuse me, he was a man among boys. He was able to go out there, route up a lot of the secondary for the Vikings, and ultimately had himself an amazing game. He had like 8 receptions for... what was that? Hold on, let me look up the exact stats so I don't lie to y'all. Player stats. Here we go. Receiving. DeVonta Smith had 9 receptions for 183 yards and 1 touchdown. He diced up the entire secondary and was a constant threat. If he can continue to do that, and that's almost every single game, Jalen Hurts looked near perfect in the passing game. And that's not something that you often see. I mean, he had the highest passing... he had the third highest, or... Yeah, I think it was the third highest Eagles passer rating, or passing rating grade, whatever you want to call it, in Eagles history. Only behind, I think, McNabb and Vick. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts and DeVonta Smith are heavily linked to, if one succeeds, the other will probably follow. I mean, that connection's still there from college, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially with all these new receiving threats around DeVonta Smith, some of the pressure gets taken off of him as well. That brings me on to another offensive weapon that we have, that being Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon had quite a down year last year, unfortunately, coming off of a 2,000-yard season, but if you listened to me and everything I was saying leading up to the season, I wouldn't have been shocked if Saquon had a significant decrease in touches and rushing yards last season. I think he broke over 1,000 rushing yards. I forget, might have been 1,100 rushing yards that he had in the season. And obviously that's significantly less than like 2,500, which I believe is what he had around by the end of the full NFL season back in 2024. But to me, Saquon this year is going to be known for his legs, but more importantly, especially looking at some of the stuff that they did during OTAs and minicamp, Saquon's going to be a threat in the passing game this season. And you can mark my words when I say that. Jalen Hurts, if he doesn't have anybody open down the field with play action, he's going to look for his tight end or his running back. And so that gives Saquon a lot of opportunities that if he's not being covered or if it's zone coverage, that he's going to be in the open field and he's going to be able to make a guy miss or two. So I do feel like Saquon is in the prime position that instead of rushing and trying to find the hole as much, and even the West Coast offense will benefit him because he'll be in the back and being able to survey where the quarterback would normally be for a Sirianni offense. To me, I think Saquon will benefit from having that extra time to run downfield to hit the hole or running down the field to get open for Jalen. So I do think that Saquon will ultimately have a better season, not just rushing, but receiving as well. He will be a major target moving forward. And you could say the same thing about Tank Bigsby. I could tie Tank Bigsby in here. I think he'll have a better season. I think Sirianni and Mannion took a look and said, look, whenever Bigsby was on the field most of the time, he was fairly efficient. And he got us a first down. Even if it was like 3rd and long, he found a way to get that first down on a rushing attempt. So don't be surprised if you see Tank Bigsby taking a lot of the load off of Saquon so we don't kill his legs before the postseason. Next up is this. This is an interesting character that I haven't heard too many people talk about. And I don't think he's injured. I think he's fine. I just don't think that he's done much, but he's going to have to step up this upcoming season. Let me see if he... I mean, supposedly right now, according to like Eagles Wire and Bleeding Green Nation, he's listed as one of the top 30 most important Eagles this season. But that's Jihaad Campbell. Campbell showed a lot of flashes during his rookie year last year, but certainly needs to take another step forward with Nakobe Dean leaving for Las Vegas. Zach Bond won't be able to do it all alone, and so he needs a consistent guy like Jihaad Campbell next to him. Campbell, I believe, has all the skill to be a top tier, if not a top 5 linebacker, but he just needs to be on the field more often. Last year, Nakobe Dean took a lot of his snaps, so we didn't see Jihaad as much as some probably would have hoped. And so that led to a lot of people not knowing what Jihaad might end up being. But to me, I believe that he has the makings of a overall top-tier starting linebacker. And you could also throw in here possibly Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who had an amazing offseason so far at OTAs and minicamp. If Jihaad Campbell starts to get shaky, don't be surprised if we hear rumors that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is looking to usurp that role from Jihaad Campbell. Next up, I have Jalen Carter. Now, Jalen Carter has been working off to the side during the offseason. Many people theorize that it's the contract and such, but to me, it's really not. It's obvious what it is. Jalen Carter injured both his shoulders and had surgery this offseason so he could be right for the 2026 regular season. And so, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jalen Carter still working off to the side for a little bit, but eventually once pads come on and once he's like fully healthy and 100% to go, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jalen Carter out there at peak form. If he can maintain that late season form he had in 2024, if he can maintain that for the season, he is a top tier threat on the defensive line across the NFL. Let alone on the Eagles' defensive line, which already has Moro Ojomo, who's going for a contract here, Jordan Davis, who just had a big contract, Jonathan Grenard, Jalix Hunt, and Nolan Smith. And possibly Brandon Graham if he ever decides to come back out of retirement. God only knows. But to me, Jalen Carter is one of the top 5 most important Eagles this season because of the leap he has to take in order to cement the Eagles as a good defensive team or a great defensive team. Next up is Andrew Mabuka. Now, Andrew Mabuka is an interesting situation only due to the fact that he was injured a decent amount last season, but when he was on the field, he was solid as a zone coverage safety. And so, with him being the only consistent safety from last year, and there being a training camp battle for the other position, which we'll get into next week, and we will continue to track that moving forward, similar to what we did last training camp and preseason. I think that Andrew Mabuka is going to be a major key for the secondary. Yes, you have Coop playing safety 30% of the time when the Eagles are in base defense, but outside of that, we're going to have a solid guy to anchor the position while we have a few battles going on. So Andrew Mabuka, he A, needs to stay healthy, B, needs to stay fit, and C, needs to stay in the film room to continue to improve his overall play at safety. Don't be surprised if the Eagles trade for safety to put alongside Andrew Mabuka, not to replace Mabuka, but I do think he will be one of your starting safeties moving forward, without a doubt. I have two rookies on here, and take these with a grain of salt, especially the second one. The first one I have is Makai Lemon. Now, Lemon was on NBC Sports Philadelphia during a Phillies game. He was on there with McCarthy and Crucker, and ultimately he seemed pretty healthy. He seemed ready to go, and that made me pretty happy to see that he was excited for working out with guys like Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. Ultimately, he was hampered a lot during the late off-season with a hamstring injury, and he's been recovering from that, but supposedly he said that he's 100% healthy now, which I'm going to take his word on it. But I do think that Makai Lemon will just need to work on his health. Don't push himself too much during the preseason, but he does need to make a name for himself, especially with that number 9 on his jersey, with how respected and how legendary that number is in the Eagles organization. Wearing that number 9, he's going to have to be able to push himself a little bit, but not enough to injure himself. But I do think he'll settle into a wide receiver 2 role this upcoming preseason. Last up on the list that I wanted to discuss was Eli Stowers. We talked about Stowers last episode when we talked about all the different pass catchers and Eagles quarterbacks that went down to University of Central Florida. I do believe Stowers will have a more quiet role this year. Don't expect like an amazing performance from Stowers right off the bat. Maybe late in the season when we need to give Dallas Goedert some time to take a break or some rest. But overall, I do think Stowers will play a more important role next year in the Eagles. But for now, I think that he's a solid backup. But I do want to continue to talk about him because he is a top-tier athlete, let alone pass catcher. So it would be interesting to see how much of a role he has in Sean Mannion's offense this preseason, and we'll just have to wait and see how he's used alongside guys like Johnny Mundt, Dallas Goedert, and E.J. Jenkins as well. The last person I want to talk about, and I left him off the list because it's not a player, I want to talk about Nick Sirianni. So Sirianni, I do believe, will have some control of the offense. I don't think it's going to be completely Mannion like a lot of people are trying to say, which is not a bad thing. There are certain aspects of Sirianni's offense that does work, but it's getting up most, I would say 85% of it is probably getting an overhaul, and Mannion is installing his stuff. Now, I do believe Sirianni is very much on the hot seat. I know, crazy for a guy that just got one of the largest extensions for head coaches. It doesn't mean I believe he should be there, but I do believe that he is on the hot seat. Whether or not if this team starts out slow, I could see a scenario where the Eagles organization fires Sirianni, possibly promotes Vic Fangio as head coach, and possibly just have Sean Mannion, or maybe pushes Sean Mannion to head coach, so he doesn't get picked off by another team. There is an instance where I could see that happening, but overall, I do think Sirianni needs to prove himself early and often, has to rally the troops, prove that he's never going to be a guy that's schematics. He's going to be a rah-rah guy, and that's okay. Those guys do work in the NFL, and Sirianni has proven that. I mean, Christ, the man just won a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. So to me, it's understandable why people would be hesitant on Sirianni coming into the season, and quite frankly, there are times that I am too. But I do believe that Sirianni has the culture and knows how to run it enough to keep his job safe. Now he just needs to hope that the offense can shape up under Sean Mannion. And so, with that being said, what are some of the storylines I expect to come out of training camp? I'm mainly talking about Eagles training camp here. In a minute, we'll talk about the storylines coming out of the preseason, which will cover all the NFL. But getting back to training camp, I believe that a lot of people will have their eyes on Jalen Hurts, so Jalen Hurts' possible struggles will be a major storyline. His struggles to adjust to a Sean Mannion West Coast offense. I believe that Jalen Carter and his health and him possibly not being with the team 100% will be a storyline this upcoming season. I do believe so. I do think that safety spot, that battle between Michael Carter II and Marcus Epps will be a major storyline, and that will kick off immediately once we see who gets the starting reps with the first team reps right off the bat on day one. So that one's going to be throughout the entire training camp. And that's not if this other storyline. So one is Jalen Hurts and his struggles, or possible struggles. Two would be Jalen Carter and his ability to perform at a high level. Three would be the battle at the safety position alongside Andrew Mabuka. Four would be if the Eagles would be willing to trade for a defensive superstar to put them over the hump. And five would be, to me, Sirianni's ability to be a head coach and not just like a puppet for the Eagles front office. So those are the big 5 storylines that I could realistically see coming out of the training camp for the Eagles. Now the major storylines I could see coming out of the preseason would probably be whether the Giants can stay healthy, whether Cam Scatterboo and Jackson Dart can stay healthy long enough to put together a solid season, whether the Dallas Cowboys offense can drag their lifeless defense along throughout the season enough to even contend for the division, whether the Rams have the most pressure on them because of all the superstar trades and superstar signings that they've made, whether they can get over the hump and make it past the NFC Championship game again. Another one would probably be one of the biggest what-ifs in NFL currently, whether the Bengals and Joe Burrow can stay healthy enough for a season to even contend for the division. And lastly, I think number 5 would probably be whether the Eagles can get everything together and in order before they have to go on a run for this NFL season. So those are both the training camp and the preseason storylines that I believe are probably going to come out of this offseason, because a lot of those are kind of repeats that we've seen in the past anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these repeats come back out of the woodworks to haunt some of these teams. Last thing I wanted to talk about is I want to go over to the scourge of sports media, that being ESPN. Now, it was funny. ESPN recently had to lay off a bunch of people. And some of these people I 100% agree with. Ryan Clark. I'm just going to cover a lot of the people that cover the NFL. There are quite a few more that I do believe probably should have stayed on due to their talent. And there are others that I believe 100% should have been fired a long time ago. Starting with Ryan Clark. I believe Ryan Clark is one of the worst analysts on TV when it comes to football. And when he starts to lose the argument, he starts to play the card, especially when it wasn't a player, he starts to play the card, well, you didn't play, I did play. And because that works every single time. We all know that. And Ryan Clark, to me, was kind of a joke. I never really was able to take him serious when he was on any of the NFL talk shows or any of the major media shows that ESPN hosts. And so, Ryan Clark, goodbye. Please stay out of media, for God's sake. Next up is NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero. Now, Tom Pelissero is an asshole. Ultimately, Pelissero, he was the one that dropped a lot of the Jalen Hurts slander earlier this year. And so, to me, I've never really was able to buy back into Pelissero as an analyst and as a quote-unquote insider when he was getting all this inside information from A.J. Brown, who was just looking to blow up the entire organization. And so, to me, I believe that Pelissero, it's probably good to get rid of a guy that is just going to not check both sides of the story and try to get the information out as quick as possible. So, goodbye, Pelissero. Thank God you and your perfect teeth are not going to be on my screen anymore. The last one I kind of wanted to talk about was Cam Newton. Now, Cam Newton really hadn't been on the ESPN in a little bit due to the end of the football season. And so, to me, Cam Newton it's always a guy just looking to get clips, even online when he's hosting his 4th and 1 show. I don't know if it's a podcast or like a show, but Cam Newton, it's time for him to go. I mean, I believe that he's just a bigger than life personality because he knows that that's what gets views nowadays, and that's why he makes clippable points, like when it comes to quarterbacks and such. And so, to me, I just think that these three guys really deserve to get fired due to their lack of ability in the sports media field to argue their own point, or B, their lack of being willing to check their sources afterwards, or even correct themselves. Alright, so I guess that's quite a grim way to end the episode, so let's just do this. Welcome to the NFL preseason, guys. We finally made it. Today's the day. The Panthers and the Cardinals have already taken the field by the time this episode's released, and it is an exciting time for us. We're finally back, and we're finally back to weekly episodes. Let me know down in the comments whether you guys enjoyed this episode and whether or not I had an idea, because I haven't set up, whether or not you guys would want me to possibly stream or look into streaming a maybe 1 or 2 NFL primetime games this upcoming season to see whether it works and whether I can do it and whether y'all would want that even more. But leave a comment down below whether y'all would like to see that. And I think that's it for this episode. Before I go, remember, go Birds.